The room was a cacophony of alien tongues, 1,000 grievances spilling over like a shattered dam. In the center of the assembly, a human envoy stood defiant, flanked by the holographic projections of their home planet's council. The failed invasion of Earth was a topic too bitter to swallow, too embarrassing to ignore. Zorelax, the High Chancellor of the Wytheran Empire, banged his gavel, attempting to restore order. His voice, a low rumble like distant thunder, reverberated through the chamber. "Enough," Zorelax roared, his 3 eyes swiveling towards the human envoy. "You have brought this upon yourselves by refusing our ultimatum." The human, Lieutenant Commander Arya Sandoval, stood her ground, her eyes bright with the fire of 1,000 suns. "And you have underestimated us, Chancellor. Earth will not bow." A ripple of unease passed through the assembly, a sea of alien faces exchanging glances, their bioluminescent skin flickering in alarm. The Wytheran had lost thousands of ships that had been thought invincible. The realization was sinking in, a heavy stone in the pit of the Galactic Council's collective stomach. In the shadows, an Osiran spy watched, cloaked in invisibility, their report already half written in their mind. The humans had been underestimated, their quantum technology misunderstood. What was once a minor annoyance had now become a serious threat. "What is your response, Earthling?" Zorelax demanded, his voice tinged with both anger and a hint of fear. Arya's face hardened, the lines of worry and determination etched deep. "We are prepared to defend our planet at all costs. Our crusade has begun." The words were a catalyst, igniting a flurry of activity and panic. Screens lit up across the room as reports of human retaliation poured in, their quantum fleets already mobilizing. The council chamber became a hive of frantic energy, the aliens scrambling to comprehend the storm they had unleashed. Amidst the chaos, Arya activated her communicator, her voice calm yet steely. "Initiate Operation Thunderstrike," she commanded, the weight of the decision like a leaden anchor in her chest. The chamber fell silent, the name itself enough to send a shiver through the hearts of the council members. The humans had made their move, and now the galaxy would learn the cost of underestimating them. "We will not stand idly by," Arya declared, her voice resolute. "This is only the beginning." The council erupted once more, fear and desperation mingling in the air, as the echoes of Earth's defiance reverberated through the galaxy. The stage was set, the stakes higher than ever. As Arya turned to leave, she knew the crusade she had just unleashed would be written in the stars, forever changing the course of history. The control room of the quantum nexus crackled with an unnatural energy, the air dense with the whirring hum of machinery and the soft, insistent beeping of warning signals. Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen stood at the helm, her eyes darting between the holographic displays that surrounded her like a constellation of urgency. The interdimensional rift was widening, its edges shimmering with a chaotic iridescence, threatening to spill its contents into the fabric of reality itself. "Containment field at 70%, Lieutenant," an ensign called out, his voice barely concealing the tremor beneath his calm facade. "We can't hold it much longer." Maya clenched her jaw, her mind racing. The quantum nexus, humanity's most advanced research station, was now a battleground, an unseen enemy tugging at the seams of existence. It was a crisis of their own making, a desperate bid to harness the quantum matrix that now threatened to unravel everything. "Divert all auxiliary power to the stabilizers," she ordered, her voice a sharp contrast to the chaos around her. "And get me a secure line to Earth Command." The ensign nodded, fingers flying over the console, but Maya's attention drifted to the viewport. Beyond the trembling field of energy, stars flickered like distant hopes. She thought of her brother, Sam, stationed on Luna Base, and the promise she'd made to him, to return home, safe, after this mission. The thought fueled her resolve. A crackle of static and then a voice broke through the din. "Earth Command online." Maya leaned into the comms interface. "This is Lieutenant Commander Chen of the Quantum Nexus. We're experiencing a catastrophic containment breach, requesting immediate assistance and authorization for Protocol Omega." The paws on the other end stretched, tension coiling tighter around Maya's spine. Protocol Omega was not just a failsafe. It was the endgame, a last resort designed to collapse the quantum wave function before it could consume their reality. Authorization granted, came the terse reply, the gravity of the decision settling like a shroud over them both. But, Chen, be aware. If you initiate Omega, there's no coming back. She nodded, even though they couldn't see her. Understood. Nexus out. She turned back to her crew, whose faces reflected the enormity of what was at stake. They were brilliant minds, scientists and soldiers, and yet, in this moment, they were all just human, mortals standing against the infinite. Prepare to initiate Protocol Omega, she announced, her voice carrying the weight of command and camaraderie. We hold the line, for Earth, for each other. The crew responded with a unity forged in the fires of desperation. Yet, as they moved, the Nexus shuddered, a groan reverberating through its superstructure. The rift pulsated, a malevolent heartbeat that thrummed through their bones. Maya's console flared with fresh data. She swiped to bring up a new holographic overlay, her eyes widening at the readings. Damn it, she muttered. They're accelerating the breach. Who? The ensign asked, panic edging his voice. Maya's lips pressed into a grim line. The Antumbra Collective, she said, the name a curse on her tongue. An enigmatic force, their agents had infiltrated the Nexus, their motives inscrutable, their allegiance to chaos absolute. We have to stop them, she continued, her mind already mapping strategies. All non-essential personnel, evacuate to the escape pods. The rest of you, gear up for counter-infiltration. As the crew scrambled to follow her orders, Maya felt a presence approach. It was Dr. Alara Voss, the station's chief quantum physicist, her eyes bright with a mix of fear and determination. Maya, Alara said, her voice a lifeline amidst the storm. If we can't close the rift, the singularity will collapse into a quantum cascade, obliterating everything. I'm aware, Maya replied, her voice a study in controlled desperation. But we can't let the collective succeed. Not here. Alara nodded, her gaze steady. Then let's end this. Together, they moved towards the armory, their footsteps echoing through the corridors. As they suited up, Maya felt the weight of her role more keenly than ever. She was a soldier, yes, but she was also a leader, a beacon in the dark. The armory door slid open, revealing ranks of weapons and tactical gear. Maya selected a pulse rifle, its weight familiar and reassuring in her hands. Alara strapped on a kinetic shield, her fingers deftly adjusting the controls. Remember our training, Maya said, locking eyes with each member of her team. Watch each other's backs. We go in, neutralize the threat, and get out. Understood? A chorus of affirmations followed her words, a testament to their shared resolve. Together, they moved out, a phalanx of human determination against the encroaching void. The corridors of the Nexus were a labyrinth of steel and circuitry, the hum of machinery a constant backdrop. They moved with practiced efficiency, each corner presenting a potential ambush, each shadow a threat. As they approached the central hub, the nerve center of the station, Maya signaled a halt. She crouched, her senses attuned to the slightest disturbance. Movement ahead, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. Prepare to engage. The team spread out, weapons at the ready, eyes scanning the dimly lit expanse. And then, like a specter from the darkness, a figure emerged, anonymous in its armored suit, the emblem of the Antumbra Collective etched in crimson across its chest. Contact, Maya shouted, and the air erupted in a storm of gunfire and energy blasts. The collective operative moved with inhuman speed, darting between cover as the firefight raged. Maya fired, each shot precise, but the enemy was relentless, its tactics honed for chaos. Flank left, Maya ordered, and Alara broke formation, her shield absorbing the brunt of the enemy's assault. Maya pressed forward, her pulse rifle singing with lethal intent. The enemy reeled, and Maya seized the moment, closing the distance with a soldier's grace. Her rifle discharged in a brilliant arc, the operative crumpling under the onslaught. "Clear," Maya called, and the team regrouped, breathless but unyielding. Alara joined her, her expression grim but triumphant. "There's more," she said, consulting her wrist console. "They're trying to access the reactor core. If they succeed, then the whole station goes up in a quantum inferno." Maya finished, the implications chilling in their clarity. "We can't let that happen." They pushed on, urgency driving them deeper into the heart of the Nexus. The corridors twisted, each junction a potential death trap, but Maya's determination was a blade that cut through the haze of fear. As they neared the reactor chamber, the station's vibrations intensified, the rift's energy resonating through every surface. Maya paused, rallying her team with a look that spoke volumes. A shared history, a shared fate. The chamber doors loomed ahead, sealed behind layers of security. But even as Maya approached, a reverberating pulse signaled the breach of those defenses. "Go," she commanded, and the team surged forward, their entry a symphony of precision and power. Inside, the reactor chamber was a cathedral of technological marvels, its centerpiece an intricate lattice of energy and containment. And there, at the heart of it all, a cadre of Antumbra operatives worked with frenetic purpose, their goal clear, their intent unmistakable. "Hold them off," Maya shouted, diving into cover as the room erupted in mayhem. Her pulse rifle fired in controlled bursts, each round a beacon of defiance against the encroaching night. Alara moved beside her, her shield a bulwark against the chaos. Together, they advanced, their resolve an unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of necessity. The collective operatives responded with ruthless precision, their weapons a symphony of destruction. Yet Maya and her team pressed on, each step a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will. And then, as the battle raged, a new presence emerged, a figure clad in an exosuit of advanced design, its visor reflecting the storm of quantum energies. The leader of the Antumbra, a specter of the future's darkest possibilities. The leader's voice cut through the maelstrom, amplified by a voice modulator, resonant with cold authority. "You cannot stop the inevitable, Chen. The quantum singularity will belong to the collective." Maya met the figure's gaze, her eyes burning with defiance. "Not as long as I have breath," she vowed, her voice a clarion call amidst the storm. The leader raised a hand, and the room was filled with a surge of power, a quantum distortion that rippled through the fabric of reality, a harbinger of impending doom. "Maya," Alara's voice was a lifeline, her shield straining but unyielding. "We have to initiate Protocol Omega now." Maya nodded, the gravity of the decision a weight she bore willingly. "Cover me," she instructed, her gaze locking with Alara's. "And whatever happens, know that it was an honor." Alara's eyes softened, understanding passing between them in an unspoken bond. "Go," she urged, her shield flaring with renewed strength. Maya surged forward, her path a crucible of fire and fury. The air crackled with energy, the reactor's core a beacon of impending annihilation. With a final burst of speed, she reached the control console, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. The station shuddered, the quantum matrix teetering on the brink. "Initiating Protocol Omega," she declared, her voice unwavering amidst the chaos. For Earth, for humanity. The reactor's core pulsed with a light that defied description, a radiance that eclipsed the shadows. The station trembled as the Omega sequence unfolded, a cascade of quantum collapse shuddering through the ether. The leader of the Antumbra, sensing the shift, unleashed a final barrage, a desperate gambit to halt the inevitable. But Maya stood firm, her resolve a bulwark against entropy. As the sequence reached its crescendo, the room was bathed in a blinding brilliance, the reactor's energies coalescing into a singularity of purpose. And then, with a final, resounding detonation, the quantum nexus was engulfed in a wave of light, the rift sealing with a finality that echoed across the cosmos. Silence descended, the air thrumming with the aftershock of creation and destruction. Maya stood amidst the wreckage, her body aching, her spirit unbroken. The collective had been thwarted, but the cost was steep, the ramifications unknown. As the survivors gathered, their faces etched with the scars of what had been, Maya looked to Alara, their shared triumph bittersweet. "We did it," Alara murmured, her voice a fragile thread in the quiet aftermath. Maya nodded, the weight of their victory settling upon her shoulders. "But at what cost?" she whispered, the question hanging in the air like a specter of things yet to come. The quantum nexus was saved, but the war was far from over. The collective would regroup, their ambitions undaunted, their reach extending into the shadows of tomorrow. For now, though, Maya and her team had bought humanity a reprieve, a moment of peace in the eye of the storm. And as they gathered their strength and counted their losses, one truth remained unyielding: humanity, against all odds, would endure. The room was dimly lit, the atmospheric blue glow of the screens casting elongated shadows on the faces of the gathered officials. Every eye was fixed on the holographic display spinning in the center of the room, a vast, three-dimensional star map. The galaxies twinkled like a field of diamonds, each representing a system known to house the alien conglomerate called the Consortium. Their reach was vast, far more extensive than humanity had initially estimated. Commander Sloan, with her cropped auburn hair and eyes that could pierce steel, stood at the helm of this assembly. Her expression was a mask of controlled urgency, though beneath it lurked the palpable weight of desperation. The initial reports had been grim, but the revelations that followed were a sucker punch to any hope of retaliation. The Consortium hadn't just tried to invade Earth, they had merely tested the waters. The true invasion force loomed on the horizon, an armada that could snuff out Earth's flickering flame with the swiftness of extinguishing a candle. "Our intelligence was wrong," Sloan stated, her voice laced with a tense veneer. "The invasion wasn't a failure, it was a feint. We've intercepted communications indicating that they're mobilizing their full fleet. We have 4 months, at most, before they reach us." Murmurs rippled through the assembly, a cacophony of disbelief and fear. General Matthews, a man whose very presence seemed carved from granite, rose to his feet. His voice was gravelly, worn from years of shouting orders on distant battlefields. "Then what are our options, Commander? We can't fight them on their terms. Our technology is generations behind." Sloan took a deep breath, steeling herself against the inevitable descent into despair. "We're outmatched in every conceivable way. Their quantum technology manipulates reality in ways we can barely comprehend. But if we can understand it, even in a limited capacity, we might find a weakness." "Understand it?" scoffed Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of the Quantum Research Division. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Their tech is like trying to decipher an alien language with nothing but a broken dictionary. We've had our best minds on this, and we're no closer than we were a month ago." Sloan looked at Elena, her voice softening. "Elena, I know what I'm asking seems impossible, but you're the only person who has come close to even grasping their quantum principles. We need to push beyond the boundaries of our current understanding." Elena sighed, running a hand through her unruly curls. Her personal lab had become a second home, a sanctuary against the impending doom. But the pressure was relentless, and the burden of expectation weighed heavily on her shoulders. She glanced at Sloan, seeing not just a leader demanding miracles but a friend caught in the same inexorable tide. "I'll do what I can," Elena promised, the weight of her words a tenuous lifeline. "But we need more resources, more minds to throw at this problem." "Granted," Sloan replied without hesitation. "We'll allocate everything we can spare." The room descended into a tense silence, broken only by the quiet hum of the holographic display. It was Matthews who spoke next, his voice cutting through the tension. "What about the Crusade?" The mention of the Crusade sent a ripple of unease through the assembly. A desperate measure, it was a call to arms not just for Earth's military, but for every human willing to defend their home. A crusade that would rally humanity in a final, defiant stand against annihilation. "We're mobilizing," Sloan replied. "Every capable ship, every soldier, every civilian who can wield a weapon. This is an all-or-nothing fight. General Matthews nodded, his expression grim. We might not have the firepower, but we have something the consortium doesn't, our will to survive. That has to count for something. As the meeting adjourned, the weight of their predicament settled like a leaden shroud over each of them. Sloane lingered, her gaze drifting to the star map once more. It was a testament to their peril, a reminder of the vastness they faced. Elena approached her, a hesitant camaraderie in her step. "Sloane," she said, her voice softer now, away from the scrutiny of others. "How are you holding up?" Sloane offered a wry smile, her facade slipping just enough to reveal the woman beneath the armor. "I've been better. It's hard to lead when you can't see a path forward." "Then make one," Elena replied, her words both a challenge and encouragement. "You always do." Sloane nodded, appreciating the sentiment, even if belief came harder these days. "And you, Elena, how are you coping with the pressure?" Elena shrugged, a weary yet resilient gesture. "By telling myself that if anyone can crack this, it's us. Even if the odds are stacked against us, maybe that's when humans are at their best." Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared, teetering on the edge of an abyss but refusing to fall. Together, they'd face whatever came, even if hope seemed like a distant memory. Hours stretched into days, and the halls of the research facility buzzed with frantic energy. Elena found herself surrounded by a battalion of scientists, their numbers bolstered by the best minds Earth could offer. They worked in shifts, a tireless rotation of calculations and theories, each new discovery a glimmer of light in the oppressive darkness. It was during one such shift, in the early hours of a sleepless night, that Elena found a thread to pull. A theory, barely formed but tantalizing in its implications, a potential way to disrupt the consortium's quantum arrays. It was a faint hope, a chance to turn their own technology against them. But as Elena delved deeper, she realized the complexity of the task. The consortium's technology was so advanced that even understanding a fraction of it felt insurmountable. She needed help. Someone who could see beyond conventional paradigms. That someone arrived in the form of Dr. Kieran Iyer, a maverick physicist known for his unconventional methods. He had been a thorn in the side of scientific orthodoxy for years, yet his insights had unlocked breakthroughs others deemed impossible. Kieran entered the lab with a confident swagger, his eyes alight with curiosity and defiance. "I hear you need a fresh perspective," he said, his voice a rich baritone that seemed to fill the room. Elena looked up from her console, her own exhaustion mirrored in his restless energy. "Kieran, thank you for coming. We need to think outside the box, way outside, and I hear you're good at that." Kieran grinned, a wicked curve of his lips. "That's one way to put it. Show me what you've got." Together, they pored over the data, their minds weaving an intricate dance of ideas and possibilities. Kieran's approach was unorthodox, a patchwork of intuition and lateral thinking that sometimes bordered on madness. But in the madness lay brilliance, and beneath his eccentricity, Elena saw a mind that could reshape their understanding of the universe. As they worked, a camaraderie blossomed, a shared purpose that transcended the barriers of their different methodologies. They were two sides of the same coin, united by a desperate drive to save their world. Yet, even as they moved closer to a breakthrough, complications arose. Reports flooded in of consortium sabotage attempts on Earth, a prelude to the coming storm. Infrastructure was targeted, communications disrupted, whispers of fear fanned into flames of panic. The consortium's agents were among them, sowing discord and chaos. Sloane found herself grappling with a new reality. The battle wasn't just in the stars but in the hearts and minds of humanity. She had to keep her people united, to quell the rising tide of fear before it consumed them. One night, as Elena and Kieran labored in the lab, Sloane entered, her presence a whirlwind of determination and weariness. "I need an update," she said, her voice firm but tinged with the exhaustion of countless sleepless nights. "We're close," Elena replied, hope flickering in her eyes. Kieran has been invaluable. We've identified potential weaknesses in their quantum arrays. Kieran nodded, gesturing to the chaotic array of notes and screens. If we can create a resonance cascade, we might destabilize their technology. But it's a long shot. A long shot is better than no shot, Sloane replied, a fierce resolve in her tone. We're running out of time. As she turned to leave, Elena called after her. Sloane, we're going to make it through this. We have to. Sloane paused, her gaze meeting Elena's. I know, she said softly. Because people like you won't give up. The words lingered in the air, a testament to their shared struggle. As Sloane left, the lab returned to its frenetic pace, every second a precious commodity they couldn't afford to waste. Outside, the world teetered on the brink. The Crusade was gathering momentum, a call to arms that resonated across the globe. Humanity was uniting, not just in defiance, but in a shared determination to survive. Yet, beneath the rallying cries, the knowledge of being outmatched gnawed at them, a constant reminder of the precarious tightrope they walked. In the depths of the lab, Elena and Kieran worked tirelessly, their minds a synchronized symphony of innovation and desperation. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but in their hearts burned a flicker of hope, a belief that against all odds, humanity would find a way. As the countdown to invasion continued, the world watched and waited, suspended in a moment of impending doom. And in the shadows, the consortium gathered its forces, unaware of the fire that burned in the souls of those who refused to surrender. The air inside the quantum relay station was thin, the pressure mounting with each passing second as Lieutenant Sarah Kincaid punched commands into her console. Her fingers moved in a frantic, staccato rhythm, trying to outpace the inevitable surveillance breach that would mark their doom. Sweat pricked along her hairline, pooling in the hollow of her neck. The relay thrummed beneath her feet, its vibrations a constant reminder of the war raging unseen in the ether. Status, Kincaid. Commander Jax's voice barked over the distorted comms, harsh and edged with urgency. 30 seconds until breach, sir, Kincaid replied, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. Trying to reroute frequencies, Jax swore under his breath, a litany of curses from a dozen different languages. Around them, the team worked in grim silence, each aware that failure meant death. Not just for them, but for the countless others who relied on the intelligence they were trying to safeguard. The enemy, a coalition of non-human species known as the Convergence, had finally cracked the encryption on their quantum relay. It was a monumental feat, one that suggested a traitor among their ranks or, worse, that the Convergence had developed technology beyond what humans believed possible. In either case, it was an existential threat to the human resistance. Lieutenant, can you convert the signal to a quantum entangled state? Jax asked, desperation sharpening his tone. Already on it, sir, but it's risky. It'll draw more power than we can afford, Kincaid answered, her mind racing through the calculations. We might burn out the relays. Jax's eyes bore into her, the unspoken command clear, do it. Kincaid's fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating the entanglement protocol. As the system began to hum with increased energy, she glanced at her team. There was Corporal Dinesh, whose eyes were fixed on his panel, jaw set in concentration. Sergeant Alvarez, monitoring external threats with a grimace. And Private Lou, who was typing so furiously her knuckles had turned white. The lights flickered, a warning of the strain they were putting on the system. Alvarez looked up, his face pale. We're getting interference. Massive power surge from the Convergence ships. They're trying to jam us. Of course they are, Jax muttered, then shouted, Dinesh, can you divert auxiliary power to the shielding? Dinesh nodded, his hands a blur as he rerouted circuits. On it, but we can't hold it for long. They were out of time, out of options. Kincaid's heart pounded as the seconds slipped away. She could almost see the Convergence forces closing in, their shadowy forms slithering through the digital corridors of their network. Incoming. EMP charge detected. Lou shouted, fear breaking through her professional facade. Jax's face hardened. Prepare for impact. Secure data at all costs. The EMP charge hit them like a tidal wave, a surge of electromagnetic energy that ripped through the station. Equipment sizzled and sparked, terminals went dark, and the room plunged into chaos. Kincaid felt the jolt through her bones, her console flickering wildly before stabilizing under her frantic ministrations. Backup systems online, Kincaid reported, though the relief was short-lived. But we're running blind. Our sensors are down. In the dim emergency lighting, she saw Jax's grim nod. We hold the line. We adapt. Adapt. The word felt like a lifeline thrown into the maelstrom. Humans had always been good at that. Adapting, surviving against impossible odds. But this felt different, darker. The sheer scale of the Convergence's onslaught threatened to smother that indomitable human spirit. Kincaid, can you isolate any working systems? Jax asked, his voice pulling her back from the brink. She nodded, focusing. I can try to reboot the local network. We'll have limited range, but it's something. Do it, Alvarez. Dinesh, cover her, Jax ordered, his voice a beacon of calm amid the storm. As Kincaid worked, she felt the weight of their situation press down on her. The data they carried was critical. It held the last known locations of scattered human enclaves, the key to their survival. If the Convergence got their hands on it, she couldn't let herself finish the thought. Minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. The room was tense, silent save for the occasional hiss of malfunctioning equipment. Finally, the network sputtered to life, flickering like a candle in the wind. I've got something, Kincaid said, her voice tight with concentration. It's not much, but it's stable. Good. Send out a distress signal. We need to regroup with any nearby human forces, Jax instructed, his eyes scanning the room for threats only he could see. The signal went out, a beacon of hope cast into the void. But whether it would be received, and by friend or foe, was anyone's guess. Commander, we're picking up a signal, Lou announced, her voice barely above a whisper. It's coming from one of our outposts. Relief swept through the team, but it was short-lived. The signal was weak, fragmented. The words were garbled, but the urgency was unmistakable. Under attack. Convergence. Evacuate. Jax's jaw set, his mind racing. They couldn't leave their comrades to die, but neither could they abandon their post. Kincaid, can you decrypt their coordinates? Jax asked, his gaze unwavering. She nodded, already working. The console hummed beneath her fingers, the familiar patterns soothing despite the chaos. Almost there. Got it. Alvarez, Dinesh, prepare for evac. We're moving out, Jax ordered, his voice steely. But sir, what about the relay? Dinesh asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Jax's eyes were hard, but there was a flicker of something else. Regret, perhaps. We can't hold it. The mission comes first. A silence followed, heavy with the weight of his words. They were abandoning their post, a decision that went against every fiber of their training. But it was the only choice. The team moved quickly, gathering what gear they could. Kincaid slung her pack over her shoulder, her fingers brushing against the small silver locket she wore. It was a talisman, a reminder of why she fought. They all had something like that. A photo, a letter, a memory. It was what kept them human amid the cold expanse of space. The door to the relay station hissed open, revealing the bleak, windswept landscape beyond. A storm was brewing, dark clouds swirling with malevolent intent. It mirrored the turmoil within her own heart. Move out, Jax commanded, leading the way into the storm. They descended into the howling winds, the world a blur of movement and noise. The outpost lay kilometers away, through treacherous terrain and under the watchful eyes of the Convergence. Every step felt like a trial, the ground shifting treacherously beneath their feet. But they pressed on, driven by desperation and duty. The landscape was a twisted maze of jagged rocks and treacherous ravines, each step a gamble in the harsh alien environment. The Convergence ships circled overhead like vultures, their searchlights cutting through the darkness with relentless precision. Kincaid's muscles burned with exhaustion, but she pushed the pain aside, focusing on the rhythm of her feet pounding the ground. She caught snippets of the others' labored breathing over the comms, a reminder that she was not alone in this madness. A sudden flare of light caught her attention. She turned, heart leaping into her throat. In the distance, the relay station was engulfed in flames, the Convergence having found their abandoned outpost. The sight was both a relief and a harbinger of doom. At least the data was safe, but their pursuers were closing in. Double time, Jax shouted, urgency turning his voice into a whip. They were running out of time. The outpost came into view, a collection of prefabricated structures nestled in a narrow valley. Smoke billowed from several of the buildings, the acrid scent of burning metal and plastic filling the air. The ground was littered with debris, a testament to the ferocity of the Convergence assault. Kincaid's heart clenched as she saw the bodies, human bodies, strewn among the wreckage. Friends, comrades, cut down in their prime. There were too many to count, and she forced herself to look away, focusing instead on the task at hand. They skidded to a halt at the edge of the outpost, taking cover behind a half-collapsed wall. Jax surveyed the scene, his face a mask of determination. Alvarez, Lou, flanked left. Dinesh, Kincaid, you're with me. We need to find survivors and secure any intel they might have left behind. Move. The team split, slipping through the shadows like wraiths. Kincaid's heart thundered in her chest, her senses on high alert. The buildings loomed around them, dark and silent, like tombstones marking the graves of dreams. They entered the main structure, the air thick with smoke and despair. The corridors were eerily silent, the only sound their footfalls echoing in the hollow space. Over here, Dinesh called softly, leading them to a control room. The terminals were smashed, screens flickering with static. But amidst the ruin, there was a single, blinking light, a terminal still operational. Kincaid rushed to it, fingers brushing over the controls. The data was corrupted, but there were fragments she could salvage, bits and pieces that might make a difference. We've got something, she said, her voice hoarse with smoke and emotion. It's not much, but it's a start. A sudden explosion rocked the building, the shockwave sending them sprawling. Dust and debris rained down, the world a cacophony of destruction. Kincaid coughed, struggling to her feet as the room spun around her. Commander, we need to get out of here. Dinesh shouted over the din, his eyes wide with alarm. Jax nodded, his expression grim. Fall back, we're extracting now. They stumbled from the building, the air thick with smoke and chaos. The Convergence forces were closing in, their figures shadowy and indistinct against the burning sky. As they ran, Kincaid's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, their backs against the wall. But even in the face of annihilation, they had to keep fighting. It was the human way, relentless, defiant, driven by a spark that refused to die. But as the darkness closed in, that spark felt perilously close to being snuffed out. The stars flickered like distant candles in the vastness of space, a cruel mockery of the hope they used to symbolize. On the bridge of the Earth vessel Resolute Asterisk, Captain Miriam Hayes stood resolute against a fate she refused to accept. Around her, the crew worked frantically amidst the symphony of alarms and the ominous thrum of the ship's failing systems. The ship's AI, Delphi, projected holographic damage reports that hovered like grim specters above the command console. Every red alert was a reminder of the dire straits they faced. Shields are down to 12%, Captain. Lieutenant Jackson's voice trembled, a mixture of fear and exhaustion. We can't hold them off much longer. Keep them steady, Jax, Miriam replied, her voice a pillar of strength against the storm. We're not done yet. The Xylothan fleet loomed in the viewport, a swirling mass of malevolent geometry, their ships slicing through space with an elegance that belied their destructive power. They had outmaneuvered and outgunned humanity's defenders at every turn, their mastery of quantum entanglement technology rendering Earth's defenses laughably obsolete. This was the final stand, the culmination of a campaign that had seen humanity's outposts snuffed out like guttering flames. In the heart of the ship, beyond the chaos of the bridge, a different kind of battle was unfolding. Dr. Alara Monroe, head of quantum engineering, sat hunched over a console, her fingers dancing across the interface in a desperate bid to finish the calculations she had been working on since the war began. The project, dubbed Project Phoenix, was a last-ditch attempt to turn the tide, a theoretical device designed to weaponize the very quantum fabric of reality. Alara, we need that device online now. Captain Hayes's voice crackled through the intercom, urgency laced with the weight of command. I'm close, Miriam, but the calculations, there are still variables I can't account for. If we activate it prematurely, I trust you, Alara. We all do. Just do your best. Alara closed her eyes, inhaling deeply as she tried to calm the storm of anxiety roiling in her chest. Her mind raced, her every thought a furious attempt to weave the chaotic threads of quantum theory into a coherent tapestry. The Xylothans had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation, for the reckless kind of brilliance born from desperation. But would it be enough? At the core of the Xylothan flagship, Commander Tyrex observed the human vessel with detached curiosity. The humans, he mused, were an odd species, fragile yet tenacious, their resilience bordering on the absurd. Despite their obvious inferiority, they continued to fight, driven by some primal instinct he could not fully comprehend. It was both fascinating and infuriating. Commander, a subordinate interrupted his thoughts, the humans' defenses are crumbling. Should we ready the final strike? Tyrex considered this, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the light of the holographic display before him. Not yet. Let us savor their despair a little longer. Their spirit will break soon enough. On board the Resolute Asterisk, the atmosphere was a palpable mix of tension and determination. The crew, each soul bearing the weight of entire worlds on their shoulders, moved with a purpose that defied their dwindling chances of survival. This was their moment, the crucible that would define humanity's legacy. In the engineering bay, Alara's breakthrough came not as a sudden epiphany, but as a gradual alignment of possibility. She adjusted the parameters one last time, her hands steady despite the pressure. Captain, I'm ready. Initiating the sequence now. The ship shuddered as the device powered on, a vibration that resonated through every bulkhead and console. Energy surged, and the air hummed with potential. On the bridge, Miriam could feel it, a tingling awareness that crawled across her skin, raising the fine hairs on the back of her neck. Status report, she barked, eyes never leaving the viewport. Quantum field is stabilizing, Jackson replied, awe mingling with his fear. We're getting readings I've never seen before. The Xylothans were alert now, their sensors detecting the anomaly. Commander Tyrex's interest peaked. A rare smile tugged at the edges of his lipless mouth. It seems they have one last trick. How charmingly human. Commander, should we? Let them play their hand. It will make their defeat all the more exquisite. On the Resolute Asterisk, the countdown had begun. The culmination of Alara's genius, of humanity's indomitable will, was about to be unleashed. Yet the outcome was anything but certain. The device could as easily unravel the fabric of space as it could turn the tide. They were gambling not just their lives, but the fate of their entire species. Alara, what's the worst that could happen? Miriam's voice was calm, but beneath it lay the unspoken question. Are we about to destroy everything? The worst? Alara paused, her mind racing with the possibilities. Localized space-time collapse. It could be catastrophic. Miriam nodded, accepting the risk. Then let's hope the universe loves us back. The final seconds ticked away, each one a heartbeat in the quiet before the storm. The crew watched in breathless anticipation, their fate balanced on a quantum knife's edge. Then, with a sudden, blinding brilliance, the device activated. In that moment, reality itself seemed to shiver. Space folded, light refracted, and the laws of physics bent under the strain of quantum manipulation. For an instant, it was as if the universe held its breath. On the Xylothan flagship, alarms blared as their systems scrambled to comprehend the anomaly. Tyrex's confidence faltered, a crack in the facade of his superiority. "What is happening?" he demanded, a thread of uncertainty threading through his voice. "Commander, the humans, they've altered the quantum field. Our entanglement systems are compromised." The Xylothan fleet, so assured of their dominance, found themselves disoriented, their technological advantage slipping through their fingers like sand. In the ensuing chaos, the Resolute struck, its weapons cutting through the confusion with newfound precision. On the bridge of the human vessel, a cheer went up, a sound of defiance that echoed through the corridors. But Miriam knew better than to celebrate too soon. This was only a temporary reprieve, a sliver of hope in the shadow of impending doom. "Alara, how long can we maintain this?" she asked, her voice a lifeline through the tumult. "Not long," Alara admitted, her gaze fixed on the fluctuating readouts. "The field destabilizes with every second. We need a plan to capitalize on this, and fast." Miriam turned to her crew, her eyes blazing with determination. "Listen up. This is our moment. We need to hit them where it hurts, take out their command structure. Jackson, plot a course to their flagship. We're going to cut off the head of the snake." As the Resolute surged forward, the Xylothan fleet struggled to regroup. Tyrex watched in disbelief, his arrogance crumbling as the human vessel charged with a ferocity that belied its condition. The humans were impossible, indefatigable, and they were coming for him. "Prepare all defenses," Tyrex ordered, desperation clawing at his insides. "We will not fall to these primitives." Inside the quantum engineering bay, Alara worked feverishly, her mind a blur of calculations and contingencies. She knew the field couldn't hold, but she had come too far to let it all end here. There had to be a way to stabilize it, to turn this fleeting advantage into something lasting. As she delved deeper into the quantum equations, an idea began to form, a risky maneuver that defied convention, that played with the very essence of causality. It was madness, but so was everything else about this moment. "Captain," Alara's voice crackled through the intercom, carrying with it a spark of hope. "I have an idea. It's unconventional, but it might just work." "Unconventional is our specialty, Alara. What do you need?" "Access to the main reactor. I need to reroute power to amplify the quantum field, create a stable pocket. It could give us the edge we need." "Do it. We're all in." The Resolute bore down on the Xylothan flagship, its crew a singular force of will against the darkness. The ship shuddered as it absorbed enemy fire, yet it pressed on, driven by a determination that burned brighter than any star. In the heart of the ship, Alara initiated the reroute, her hands moving with a precision born of desperation. The reactor pulsed, energy flooding the systems as the quantum field stabilized, a fragile miracle amidst the chaos. On the bridge, Miriam watched as the Xylothan defenses faltered, their once cohesive strategy unraveling under the onslaught. The humans were relentless, and for the first time, victory seemed within reach. "Captain, we're breaking through," Jackson exclaimed, his voice a mix of disbelief and exhilaration. "Stay focused, everyone. This isn't over yet." As the Resolute closed in, Tyrex stood defiant amidst the turmoil, his resolve hardening in the face of impending defeat. The humans had surprised him, had forced him to respect their tenacity, but he would not yield. "Prepare the contingency," he ordered, his mind racing with the possibilities. "If we are to fall, we will take them with us." But the humans were not so easily undone. With a final surge, the Resolute breached the Xylothan flagship's defenses, its weapons homing in on the core. The ensuing explosion rocked the Xylothan fleet, a blinding light that seared through the darkness. On the bridge of the Resolute a moment of stunned silence followed, punctuated only by the soft hum of the surviving systems. The crew, weary but unbroken, exchanged glances of disbelief and triumph. "We did it," Jackson whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Miriam exhaled, a slow release of tension that had coiled within her for what felt like an eternity. "We're not done yet," she reminded them, her voice both a warning and a promise. "This was just one battle. We have a galaxy to save." In the engineering bay, Alara slumped against the console, exhaustion finally catching up with her. But there was a light in her eyes, a spark that had refused to be extinguished. They had done the impossible, had turned the tide against overwhelming odds. And now, there was hope, as the Resolute limped away from the battlefield, leaving behind the shattered remnants of the Xylothan fleet. The seeds of humanity's resurgence were sown. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but they would face it together. In the dark expanse of space, a new dawn was breaking. The air was thick with the static of impending conflict, a tension that had seeped into the very walls of the clandestine operations room deep beneath Geneva. The holographic displays flickered with cascading streams of data, each one a harbinger of the chaos unfurling across the quantum battleground. At the center of this digital storm stood Commander Elise Montero, her eyes locked on the ever-shifting patterns of light and code. Her mind raced through the complex web of possibilities, searching for the one strand that would turn the tide. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath, her frustration barely contained. The alien consortium known as the Zephorian Alliance had managed to infiltrate nearly every level of Earth's defense networks, their quantum espionage techniques far surpassing anything humanity had encountered before. Entire systems had been compromised, and with them, the very fabric of Earth's digital sovereignty. Her team, a ragtag assembly of the best cryptographers, cyberneticists, and quantum theorists the world could muster, worked feverishly around her. They were pushing the limits of human ingenuity, their fingers dancing across keyboards with feverish intensity as they crafted new algorithms, new defenses, new hopes. "Commander," a voice cut through the din, pulling Elise's attention to a young analyst stationed at a console marked with a glowing Q. Her name tag read, Lang, and her eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "We've detected a new pattern in the Alliance's quantum signatures. I think we've found a vulnerability." Elise was at her side in a heartbeat, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and desperation. "Show me." Lang's fingers flew across her console, pulling up a series of complex waveforms on the central display. "Here," she said, pointing. "They're encryption sequences. They're using a fractal key structure. It's nearly perfect, but there's a resonance at certain intervals. I believe it's a side effect of their communication protocol." Elise scrutinized the data, her mind spinning through possibilities. "If we can exploit that resonance," she said slowly, "we might be able to inject a false signal into their network." "A ghost command." Lang nodded, her enthusiasm tempered by the enormity of the task. "Exactly. It's a small window, but if we time it right, we could disrupt their entire command structure, maybe even turn their own systems against them." A ripple of hope passed through the room, a faint glimmer in the gloom. Elise felt it too, a fragile thread to cling to in the face of overwhelming odds. But hope alone was not enough. They needed to act, and swiftly. "All right," Elise said, her voice firm and clear. "Let's pull every available resource into this. I want simulations running in the next hour. We need to be ready to move at a moment's notice." As the team sprang into action, Elise allowed herself a moment to breathe. It was only a chance, a single fragile chance, but it was more than they'd had moments ago. Time blurred into an incessant march of calculations and frenzied planning. The room was a hive of activity, minds bending and breaking under the strain of innovation and desperation. They were trying to outthink an enemy whose technology was centuries ahead, an enemy that had never encountered anything quite like humanity's relentless ingenuity. Hours passed in a haze, the pressure mounting with each tick of the clock. Finally, the simulations were complete, the plan refined to a razor's edge. All they needed now was the perfect moment to strike. "Commander Montero," a voice crackled over the intercom, pulling her from the brink of exhaustion. It was Captain Rao, head of field operations. "We're in position, awaiting your go signal." Elise took a deep breath, steeling herself for the next step. There was no room for error, No margin for doubt. Understood, Captain. Stand by. She turned to Lang, who was running final checks on the system. Are we ready? Lang nodded, her face pale but resolute. As ready as we'll ever be. Elise nodded, her heart a steady drum in her chest. All right, let's do this. With a few swift commands, Lang initiated the sequence, the room holding its collective breath as the countdown began. The plan was simple in its audacity. To inject a quantum ghost into the Zephorian network. A phantom command that would echo through their systems, sowing chaos and confusion. The countdown reached 0, and the room seemed to exhale as one. A silence fell, weighted with the hopes and fears of everyone present. And then, in a cascade of light and sound, the plan was unleashed. The effect was immediate and profound. Across the displays, the network maps flared with activity as the ghost command rippled through the Zephorian systems. Their once impenetrable defenses flickered and faltered, entire subsystems going dark as they were overwhelmed by the false signals. Captain Rao, go! Elise barked into the comm, her voice cutting through the tumult. Initiate Phase 2. Now, on the other side of the world, Rao's team leapt into action, their insertion into the compromised network swift and surgical. They moved with the precision of surgeons, exploiting the chaos to plant subroutines and backdoors, turning the Zephorians' own technology against them. Back in the operations room, Elise watched the displays with a mix of awe and disbelief. It was working. The Zephorians, for all their advanced technology, had been thrown into disarray by the audacity of humanity's strike. But it was not yet over. The initial success was only the beginning. They needed to press their advantage, to drive the wedge deeper into the heart of the enemy's network. Lang, initiate Phase 3, Elise commanded, her voice carrying the weight of desperation turned determination. Lang's fingers danced across her console, each keystroke a calculated move in this high-stakes game of digital chess. The displays shifted, showing the new wave of commands surging through the Zephorian systems. Each phase built upon the last, a cascading sequence designed to unravel the enemy's defenses layer by layer. And with each success, a new energy filled the room, a growing belief that victory was within reach. But the Zephorians were not to be underestimated. Even in chaos, they were formidable, their responses swift and adaptive. Elise knew they would not stay on the back foot for long. They would regroup, recalibrate, and strike back with the full force of their technological might. And yet, as the minutes ticked by, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted. The Zephorians, for all their power, were struggling to regain control. Their algorithms floundered in the face of humanity's unorthodox tactics, their strategies crumbling under the weight of the unexpected. It was a testament to human ingenuity, to the ability to adapt and innovate in the face of overwhelming odds. And it was a reminder that humanity, for all its flaws and frailties, possessed a strength that no algorithm could predict, no calculation could quantify. The tide was turning, and with it, the realization that humanity was not so easily subdued. As the final stages of the plan unfolded, Elise felt a quiet resolve settle over her. They had bought themselves time, a precious commodity in this war of quantum shadows. Time to regroup, to rebuild, to prepare for the next inevitable clash. And in that moment, she understood that they had achieved something remarkable. They had faced down an enemy that had seemed invincible and found a way to strike back. It was a victory born not just of technology and tactics, but of courage and conviction. As the last echoes of the Ghost command faded from the displays, Elise allowed herself a small, weary smile. They had done it. Against all odds, they had done it. But the war was far from over. The Zephorians would not relent, and neither would they. The battle for Earth's future would continue, each side vying for supremacy in a conflict that transcended the physical, a war fought in the abstract realms of thought and code. Yet, in that moment, Elise knew they had taken the first true step toward victory. Humanity was not alone, not outmatched, and certainly not defeated. They would fight on, with hope as their guide and resilience as their shield. And somewhere in the vast reaches of the unknown, the Zephyrians would come to realize that they had underestimated the one thing they could not understand: the indomitable spirit of humanity. The room was quiet, too quiet, like the breathless moment before a storm. Commander Elena Torres stood amidst the chaos of the control center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered in midair with a tapestry of light, a digital battlefield where the fate of humanity was being decided. Around her, the collective tension was palpable, the air thick with anxiety as the command team's fingers danced across consoles, typing commands in a desperate bid to outmaneuver an adversary that had long been thought invincible. The Jakar, an alien race renowned for their mastery over quantum technology, had infiltrated Earth's quantum networks, manipulating the very fabric of reality to sow discord and confusion. For months, humanity had been on the defensive, struggling to contain the escalating chaos as systems crashed and entire cities were plunged into darkness. But now, at the 11th hour, humanity's last gambit was in play. The plan, a desperate and audacious strike, hinged on a single, harrowing opportunity: to turn Jakar's own weapon against them. A quantum convergence, a rare astronomical event, was their one chance to reverse the tide. Alina's team had discovered a flaw, a minute inconsistency in the Jakar's quantum encryption, one that could be exploited only during this fleeting cosmic alignment. Status update, Elena barked, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Quantum coherence is stable, Dr. Lee, the lead quantum physicist, reported, his eyes never leaving the cascade of data scrolling past. The alignment will peak in precisely 3 minutes. We have to execute the protocol now or never. Elena nodded, her resolve hardening. Initiate the pivot sequence, she commanded. Engage the Q-shift drive. Her team moved as one, a symphony of human excellence, each member performing their part with precision honed by months of grueling preparation. The room vibrated with the hum of the quantum processors, their power surging to unprecedented levels as they tapped into the cosmic energies aligned overhead. The holographic display shifted, displaying the neural patterns of the Jakar network. Elena could almost feel the collective pulse of her team as they prepared to breach the impenetrable, an act of defiance that defied logic and reason. A calculated madness that only humans, with their blend of creativity and audacity, could conceive. As the countdown ticked inexorably towards zero, a sense of calm descended upon Elena. This was the moment, the culmination of humanity's ingenuity and resilience. The enemy had underestimated them, dismissing humans as primitive, chaotic creatures incapable of grasping the complexities of quantum mechanics. But they had failed to account for humanity's greatest strength, their capacity to adapt, to innovate, and to rise against impossible odds. Firing quantum resonance pulse, Dr. Lee announced, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. Mark, in an instant, the room was bathed in a brilliant luminescence as the resonance pulse surged through the network, a wave of light that converged on the Jakar's encryption. Time seemed to stretch and warp as the pulse tore through the alien defenses, unraveling the intricate web of quantum threads that had suffocated Earth's systems. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The room held its collective breath, every eye riveted to the display where the Jakar's digital fortress glowed with an eerie phosphorescence. Then, like a dam breaking, the network imploded, collapsing under the weight of its own complexity. The holographic display erupted in a cascade of colors, the Jakar's once impenetrable systems laid bare and vulnerable. "Connection established," shouted Lieutenant Park, his voice tinged with triumph. "We have control of their network." A cheer erupted from the team, a sound of pure, unadulterated victory. But Elena's focus remained razor-sharp. The battle was not yet over. They had breached the fortress, but now they had to capitalize on this fleeting advantage. "Deploy countermeasures," Elena ordered, her voice cutting through the celebration. "Initiate global reset. Let's show them what humanity can do." The team moved with a fluidity born of countless hours of practice, deploying the carefully crafted countermeasures that would restore Earth's systems and cripple the Jakar on every front. Around the globe, Power grids flickered back to life, communication networks hummed with renewed energy, and the planet's infrastructure surged with vitality. The Jaka's realization of their catastrophic misjudgment was almost tangible, a ripple of shock that reverberated through their ranks as their control crumbled like sand through their fingers. They had underestimated humanity, failing to grasp the indomitable spirit that drove them to defy fate and rewrite the rules. Elena watched the display as the Jaka's systems faltered, their quantum tendrils retracting in a desperate bid to salvage control. But it was too late. The moment had passed, and humanity had seized it with a vengeance. "Initiate the final phase," Elena commanded, her voice steady as the storm of triumph surged around her. "Let's end this." With a deft precision, her team executed the final command, a cascading shutdown that echoed through the Jaka's network, severing their hold on Earth's systems and sending a clear message: humanity would not be subjugated. They had risen from the brink of annihilation, a phoenix reborn from the ashes of despair. As the last of the Jaka's digital presence dissolved into nothingness, a profound silence settled over the control center. The enormity of what they had achieved hung in the air, a testament to the power of human determination and ingenuity. Elena allowed herself a small smile, a rare moment of satisfaction in the wake of victory. Around her, the team exchanged hugs and high fives, their joy a palpable force that filled the room. "We did it," Dr. Lee murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "We actually did it," Elena nodded, her gaze sweeping over the faces of those who had fought so hard and sacrificed so much. "Yes, we did," she agreed, her voice carrying the weight of their collective triumph. "The Jakar thought they could break us, but they didn't understand what we're capable of." As the news of their victory spread across the globe, the world erupted in celebration. Humanity had stood on the precipice of destruction and emerged victorious, a testament to their resilience and unyielding spirit. In the days that followed, as the rebuilding began, the Jakar would retreat, their once dominant presence reduced to a distant memory. They would remember the humans, not as the primitive creatures they had once dismissed, but as a force to be reckoned with, a species capable of defying the odds and rewriting the future. And as the stars aligned once more in their celestial dance, humanity would look to the skies, their spirits undaunted, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For they had proven, beyond a shadow of doubt, that they were here to stay. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but one truth had been carved into its fabric on this day. Humanity was a species not to be underestimated, bound by an unbreakable will to survive and thrive against all odds. And as they stood united, their gaze turned towards the horizon, the stars themselves seemed to whisper a promise of adventures yet to come, a future forged by the hands of those who dared to dream and the hearts that refused to surrender. The battle had been won, but the journey was far from over. And as the echoes of their triumph resonated across the cosmos, humanity stood ready to face whatever awaited them, armed with hope, courage, and an unyielding spirit that burned brighter than any star. The quantum scream of the fractured machine reverberated through the vastness of space, its signal, a final, distorted echo, collapsing into a singularity of silence. The remnants of the Glishan Intelligence Network, a once formidable architecture of nonlinear computation, now lay in ruins, a lattice of light and energy disbanded by humanity's desperate gamble. On the bridge of the Terran vessel Perseverance *, Captain Arya Chen stood still, the weight of their victory pressing against her heart. Her crew, a patchwork of soldiers and scientists, had watched this moment unfold on their screens, their collective breath held in anticipation, now released in a symphony of relief and disbelief. They had done it. They had shattered the Glishan stranglehold over the quantum corridors that had kept humanity in the dark for too long. "Status report," Arya called, her voice carrying through the bridge, both commanding and reassuring. Lieutenant Samuel Torres, the tactical officer, scanned his displays, the flickering lights reflecting in his tired eyes. "The Glishan craft are in full retreat, Captain. Our systems indicate their network has been fully compromised. They're blind." He paused, a grin breaking through the fatigue. "We've done it, Arya." The crew erupted into cheers, an outpouring of emotion that filled the bridge, a cacophony of joy and exhaustion. It was a victory born of desperation, a gamble that had placed humanity's very existence on the line. Arya allowed herself a rare smile, feeling the collective spirit of her crew buoy her own weary soul. Across the ship, people embraced, their voices mingling in a chorus of celebration and disbelief. Among them, Dr. Alara Jin, the scientist whose theories had laid the groundwork for the attack, sat in quiet reflection. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and emotions, caught between the thrill of success and the haunting memory of risks taken. "Doctor, you did it," said Ensign Malik, one of the young engineers who had worked tirelessly to implement her designs. His eyes shone with admiration and relief. "We did it," Alara corrected, her voice gentle but firm. "This was always about all of us, the sum of human persistence." Malik nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had rewritten the rules of engagement, harnessing quantum mechanics in a way that even the Glycenes had not anticipated. Humanity had turned its greatest vulnerability into its greatest weapon. In the aftermath of their victory, the consequences of their actions began to unfurl like the petals of some alien flower, revealing both beauty and danger. The Glycian retreat had left a power vacuum across the quantum network, a void that humanity would now have to navigate with caution and wisdom. Diplomatic channels opened swiftly, messages of surrender and negotiation coming from Glycian emissaries who had once viewed humanity as little more than an annoyance. Arya found herself thrust into the role of diplomat, her days filled with tense communications as she sought to secure a peace that would endure beyond the immediate crisis. The Glycenes, now humbled and wary, extended an olive branch, their own desperation mirrored in the overtures they made. They had underestimated humanity, their assumptions shattered by the very species they had thought primitive. Now, they sought partnership, a chance to rebuild the shattered framework of their existence. For Arya, it was a delicate dance of trust and skepticism. She had witnessed too much, endured too many losses, to accept their overtures without question. Yet, within the grudging respect that had grown from conflict, she saw a glimmer of opportunity, a chance for genuine collaboration that could reshape the future. Meanwhile, on Earth, the news of victory spread like wildfire. Humanity, once beleaguered and isolated, now stood on the cusp of a new era. The liberation of the quantum network opened doors to technological advances that had been previously unimaginable. The knowledge they had gained would fuel innovation across the spectrum of human endeavor, from medicine to space travel. In the halls of power, leaders grappled with the implications of their newfound status. Humanity was no longer merely surviving, it was thriving, its potential unleashed like a force of nature. There were challenges, of course, questions of governance, of ethical responsibility, of how to wield this new power without succumbing to the temptations that had ensnared other civilizations before them. But perhaps the most profound change was the shift in perspective. Humanity, long divided by borders and ideologies, had come together in the face of an existential threat. The bonds forged in the crucible of conflict endured, knitting the diverse tapestry of human cultures into a more cohesive whole. As Arya navigated the complexities of interstellar diplomacy, she found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Her thoughts often wandered to those who had fallen along the way, their sacrifices etched into the foundation of their triumph. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor their legacy, to ensure that their victory was not squandered. One evening, as the stars twinkled outside the viewports, Arya found herself alone on the observation deck, the weight of command momentarily lifted. She closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of quietude, her thoughts drifting to the future. It was there that Alara found her, the scientist's presence a comforting balm. They stood side by side, the vastness of space stretching before them, a reminder of both their insignificance and their boundless potential. "Do you ever wonder what they'll write about us?" Alara asked, her voice soft, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. Arya chuckled, a sound rich with emotion. I imagine it'll be a tale of madness and brilliance, of how we dared to dream beyond the limits of our understanding. The silence that followed was filled with unspoken gratitude, a shared recognition of the improbable journey they had undertaken together. They had achieved the impossible, their victory a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. As they stood there, the stars bearing witness to their quiet reflection, the future unfolded before them, vast and uncharted. Humanity had changed the rules of the game, carving out a place for itself in the cosmos with sheer audacity and ingenuity. And so, amidst the echoes of their triumph, the story of humanity continued to unfold. They would face new challenges, encounter new wonders, and make new allies and adversaries. But they would do so with the knowledge that they had defied the odds, had stood firm against the encroaching darkness, and had emerged triumphant. In the end, it was not just a victory over the Glycines. It was a victory for the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope and courage could light the way to a brighter future. As the Perseverance sailed onward into the endless expanse, Arya and her crew carried with them the legacy of their journey, a testament to the power of unity, resilience, and the unwavering belief that humanity was, indeed, worth fighting for.